Hey, welcome back to Naval News with Subbrief. This is our first news update for 2025, and we're starting with Russia. The Russian corvette fleet that's been stationed out of Tartus for, I don't know, decades now, but a couple 20 years, has been evicted essentially since the fall of Assad, and the new leadership has come in, and without so much as being told, the Russians packed up their bags, got on their airplanes, flew those somewhere, and took their ships that they had in port and moved them out of Tartus. So, credit to MT Anderson over there on Blue Sky and on the Twitters for following this and providing photos like this on social media. Here we can see this is as of Christmas Day, right off the coast. They literally got on their ships, the Russians did, and left the harbor and stopped. Like they're within sight of the piers. They can pull back in at any time, but they haven't now for a couple weeks. So we have the Admiral Gorshkov class frigate that's out there, and another one, a little bit smaller frigate called the Admiral Grigorovich class is out there with them. And with them, there's a couple of support ships, and we're just kind of keeping an eye and seeing what they're doing. Now, before we get into what they're doing, let's talk a little bit about the ships, because that's kind of what we do here at this channel. And we have a great briefing here on the YouTubes. You can watch it right now for Admiral Sergei Gorshkov frigate. And just for those of you that haven't seen it yet, a little summary of them is they have a VLS surface-to-air missile battery of 32 missiles that can reach out to a long range, about 150 kilometers. Just forward to that, they have the 15 or 16 rather anti-ship or land attack or even hypersonic cruise missiles. They have a battery of those. And on the very front there, the bow, they have a 130 millimeter naval gun. That is a large artillery round ready to blow stuff up. So this little 4,500 ton frigate has quite the punch. It is a very sophisticated, modern, all modern sensors, very good fire control system, and a good weapon system in a very small package. It's a capable frigate. They have one of those. The second one is Admiral Grigorovich class. And I struggle saying that word, boy. Okay, this one has a fewer options. They have 24 medium-range surface-to-air missiles. Medium range meaning about to 70 kilometers, about half the range of the other one. They have half the VLS battery for their anti-ship land attack or hypersonic missiles at 8 of those missiles, and the gun on the bow is a little bit smaller in caliber at 100 millimeters. 100 millimeter round coming at you is still pretty big, but this ship in total is about 4,000 pounds in displacement. And so this is primarily, in my opinion, an ASW frigate, but because of its loadout, it is technically a multi-role frigate. Both of them are, but this one really focuses on hunting submarines. Okay, with them is one of two ships. One might be a Rapuchka class landing support ship, or, and I've briefly talked with MT Anderson via Twitter just to get his opinion, and he's not sure either. Based on the photos that he has, this is either a Hydro Survey Intel ship, or it is the one you see here, a Rapuchka class landing ship, which is designed to put a bunch of Marines with their armored vehicles on a beach and support them with gunfire and supplies while doing so. This is a landing craft support vessel, is likely still anchored off the coast with the other two frigates. Now, the reason why we think it's still here is because there were two stationed out of Tartus, and one of them with the Kilo submarine that was there was just observed leaving the Mediterranean. So we know there's one somewhere. It would make sense to have this Rapucha off the coast being protected by those frigates. Now, the new ship, this fleet at Anchorage is growing. It's getting bigger. The Sparta 3, which is this ship here, was seen as of January 5th in the Anchorage, if you will, with the two other frigates. And what we think they're trying to do is there's probably still equipment, and there's even a report of personnel remaining in the naval port. And they probably want to use this ship to pull in for a couple hours, maybe a day, and just grab as much as this of their stuff that they can and then leave again. That would make sense for having this ship ready to go to pull in at a moment's notice. We believe that there's discussions going on between the Russians and the new Syrian leadership to coordinate this so that there's no disruption, so there's no fighting essentially as they try to do this. Now, that has been going on since they left, and there's been absolutely no apparent progress other than this ship showing up right outside the port. But it's been sitting there since she arrived. So it may be for naught. Russia may not have the option to pull back in because the people that are running Syria now have been fighting the Russians for years. There's no love lost between these two. I don't think that they're going to try and offer anything to them like getting their stuff back for any reason. They're just going to keep it. That stuff's valuable too. They could sell it if they can't use it. The new Syrians can. So this is as of January 5th. Updated photo shows the Sparta there off the coast. Again, credit to Mr. M.T. Anderson. And then in the lower left here, you see that there's this unknown vessel. It's either that support landing craft or it's that intel ship, one or the other. And we'll see what happens with this. We've been watching this for weeks now, and it's been kind of at a stalemate right outside the port. So what I want you to do here is take a look at Port Tartus. Why is this so important to the Russians? This photo's from March, I believe, of 2024. So before all this went down, the Russian fleet is still in there. You can see them. Those are the ships that are in the middle there in blue. The top blue one are the smaller boats that are operated by the Syrian Navy. I've highlighted the cranes and the maintenance area here to show you how much development has been put into this port over the last 2 decades, mostly by the Russians. They funded this. They've brought people in, civilians, to build all this infrastructure. And this infrastructure is vital to maintaining these ships. So this is why this port is so important. They've invested time and money, blood, sweat, and tears into keeping this or having this port function as a place outside Russia that can support the Russian fleet. And it's been operating like that for a very long time, so they would like to keep that. But those days may be over. So there's a lot of speculation as to where they may go next. They could just go home like the Kilo and the Rapuchka apparently are doing, or they could go to Libya. They have been working with Libya, specifically this guy, since 2015. This is Khalifa Haftar. He's the Libyan leader of the eastern half of Libya. Libya is split in half, essentially, due to a civil war that continues to not be resolved. This is the leader that operates the eastern half of that country since 2015. He's even visited Moscow since 2016. So they have increasingly better ties with this gentleman here. He operates the area outlined here in yellow. A number of Air Force bases and naval bases are under his control. And so what I want to do here is take a look at the 3 most likely naval bases that the Russians could operate out of should they choose to. We're going to go from left to right here: Benghazi, Derna, and Tobruk. If we take a look at the port of Benghazi, we can see that it is primarily a large commercial port. It has 1 oil berth and a large waterfront for many cargo ships. This is a very busy port, but it does primarily commercial shipping. There is a warship and a naval headquarters operated out here. Historically, the port of Benghazi has been a naval base. They even have a floating dry dock there. Now, I don't know the condition of the dry dock, but typically, if the dry dock is functional, there would be workshops, maintenance, and support people associated with that floating dry dock. So there is some maintenance availability here, even though it is limited. It's better than 0. The next port, moving from west to east across the northern coast of Libya, is the port of Derna. Port of Derna has never been a very large port with a heavy military presence, even though it is technically a naval base. But in 2023, a large storm came through and destroyed what little stuff it had. And so now there's almost nothing left there other than a port authority. It's still a functioning port, but it's mostly fishing and some commercial activity operating out of here. There's almost no maintenance whatsoever available. If the Russians did decide to operate out of this port for whatever reason, they would have to start from 0, building all those facilities again in a new country, ironically also in a civil war like Syria has been. The last one, and I think the most likely candidate, is the port of Tobruk. The port of Tobruk is also a busy commercial port with multiple oil berths and a large commercial warehouse area with lots of workshops and warehouses. It does have a small military jetty that they park their small corvettes on. The Libyans do operate a couple of very small coastal corvette ships. So there's enough waterfront here for the Russian frigates to park and have some maintenance as well. It's not much. It's not nearly as much as Tartus, but it's better than 0. It's certainly better than Derna. And it's closer. So I think Port of Tobruk is where they're going to end up, assuming that they can't continue to operate out of Tartus. And that really is what it's looking like at this point. So as of right now, this is January 5th of this photo, a couple days ago, I guess. We do have these ships, Russian ships, the Russian flotilla of the corvettes, the Sparta support ship, and what is likely a Rapuchka-class landing support vessel hanging out off the coast in what would be called the anchorage of Tartus, waiting for something to happen. So they're either going to pull back in or they're going to move on, go home, or go to Libya. And we'll see where they go. We'll have an update for you when that happens. Who knows when that's going to happen. And one last thing I need to add here at the end. As we're recording this, we had some big news drop out of China. China announced today, this is January 9th, 2025, that they're not going to accept Russian oil tankers anymore. They're not going to buy any more Russian oil from the oil tankers. That shadow fleet of hundreds of small oil ships that Russian operates around the world has been supplying oil to China now since they've been sanctioned, and China's been buying it. Well, that's over as of today. And it looks like they're sticking to it because they've already refused entry as of today of those Russian ships, of those oil ships. So we'll see where they end up selling their oil next. The largest importer of sanctioned oil remains India by a large margin. Most of the Russian oil that's at sea ends up in an Indian port, and India's been buying it. So hopefully India gets their act together like apparently China has and joins the rest of the world and not buying Russian oil, not giving them a place to market their goods. And I think that's really important from an American point of view, that if China is beginning to, fall in line with what we think should happen, that's a good starting point for 2025. Maybe we can calm down tensions a little bit between our two countries. What do you think? Let me know. Oh, and I'm required by contract now to mention my Patreon. We want to get away from ads as much as we can, so please check out the Patreon channel and support us over there if you can. We got a $1 tier. We also have a free tier. You can join that if you want to. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.